Per share ratios, financial statement analysis, section A. A company had 150 shares outstanding on January 1st. On March 1st, 75,000 shares were issued through stock dividend. I hope you would remember that stock dividends, stock splits, they are assumed to be outstanding from the earliest reported period as if they were there from the beginning. So even they were issued on 1st of March, they will be assumed to be there at the start of the period. Then on November 1st, the company issued 60,000 shares for cash. This is the cash issue. It will be counted only from November till the end of the year. The number of shares to be used in the denominator of the EPS calculation for the year. Or in other words, you have to calculate the weighted average number of shares. So let us do this question using two different methods, and both of these will give you the same answer, method one and method two. Method one is the one that we discussed in our overview class, and method two is the more convenient one. Whichever method you like, use that one. So method one, which we discussed in our previous class, we had 150 shares, 1,050 shares, and the next stock transaction took place on 1st March, which means Jan and Feb, these 2 months, the wait for 2 out of the 12 months. Remember, it says 75,000 shares were issued through a stock dividend. 75,000 shares on the existing shares give you 50%. So it means your stock dividend was 50% of the existing shares, which means, I hope you would know, you need to increase the number of these shares. Even the stock dividend was given on 1st of March, you will have to multiply this 1.5. Even these shares were there in January, because I've just told you stock dividend, stock split, reverse stock split, it is considered, or it is assumed to be there at the beginning from the earliest reported period. So you're going to multiply 150 with 1.5, is going to be 225,000. And what weight you're going to attach to it? It will contain all the, because these shares will be assumed to be outstanding from the earliest reported period. So they will go on till the next stock transaction. And when the next stock transaction is occurring, the next stock transaction is occurring on 1st of November, which means from 1st of March, when the actual stock dividend is given, the number of shares will now increase from 150 plus 75 to 225. I told you in our overview class, in this column, you will have the actual number of shares, and in the last column, you will have the weighted average number of shares. So these are the weighted average, and this is the actual. So we need these for our computations. All right. Now, there is no stock transaction till 1st of November, and these shares will remain outstanding for 10 months from Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. 10 months out of 12. 225,000 will be counted from 10 out of 12. Multiply this with 10 upon 12. This will give you, let me calculate this. 225 multiplied by 10 upon 12, 187,500. So these shares will be counted from 1 to 10th of, end of October. So the weighted average will be 187,500. Now what happens on 1st of November? We issue 60,000 shares for cash. This number, actual number of shares, will go up from 225 plus 60 to a total of 285. Now these shares, the actual number of shares, they remain outstanding for November and December. So they will carry a weight of 2 out of 12. So 285 multiplied by 2 out of 12. So that will be 47,500. So please note, 150,000 shares outstanding at the start, multiplied by 1.5. This will be the number of shares inclusive of the stock dividend, 225. They will be counted from 1st Jan till the end of October, 10 months out of 12, 187. Then we issued 60,000 shares on 1st of November. This will raise the actual number of shares to 285, and it will carry a weight of 2 out of 12. So if you add these two, 187,500 and 47,500, this gives you 235. This is a bit longer method. If you use an alternative approach, this will be much more convenient for you. Now let's see, how do we calculate this? On 1st of January, we had 150,000 shares, and these shares remain outstanding for the whole year from 12 months out of 12 months. So it's going to be 150. Then on 1st of March, we issued 75,000 stock dividend, and stock dividend even issued on 1st of March, even issued on 17th of October, or whatever day during the year, it will carry the full weight of the whole year, because stock dividend, stock splits, reverse stock split, they are assumed to be outstanding for the whole period. So they will carry the full weight, 75,000, which is as the same as 150 plus 75, just calculated in the previous 2 to 5. Now the last one, the last share transaction was conducted on 1st of November. We issued 60,000 shares, and these shares will be outstanding from November, December, just 2 months only. So 2 out of 12. And if you, I remember it was 10, 60 into 10 upon 12, 10. So if you add all these above on the left of your right of your screen, you'll get the same number. So whichever approach you want to use, you will get the same number. It is 235. So just once after the class is over, please watch this video and do the computations yourself. Okay. A corporation had 40,000 shares of common stock outstanding on 30th November year 1. On May 20th year 2, a 10% stock dividend was declared and distributed. 10% stock dividend. When? 20th May. Stock dividend, stock splits, reverse splits, they are given full weight for the whole period, for the whole year. Even they might have been issued part way through the year. That's something we have learned by heart. On June 1st year 2, options were issued to its existing stockholders, giving them the immediate right to acquire 1 additional share of stock for each share of stock held. When? On 1st June. The option price of the additional share was 6 per share. This is the option exercise price. Every shareholder or option holder who holds option can just pay $6 to the company and can get the share. And no options have been exercised as of the year end. No option has been exercised. Okay. The average price of the common stock for the year was $20 per share. The price of the stock as of November 30th year 2, the end of fiscal year, was $30. This is the closing year price of the stock, and the average price was 20. And the corporation's net income for the year was 229,680 net income. The corporation had no outstanding debt during the year, and its tax rate was 30%. The basic earning per share of the common stock for the fiscal year ended November 30th year 2 is going to be, EPS we know is equal to income available to common stockholders. Since there are no preferred stocks, so you just plug it in here, 229,680, and divide it with the weighted average number of shares. This is the opening value or opening number of shares. And after 6 months approximately, we issued stock dividends, 10%. 10% stock dividend, stock split, reverse stock split, whenever they are issued, they are given the full weightage. So when the stock dividend was given 10%, the number of shares increased by 10% to a total of 44,000. Just use this total number as a denominator. Despite the stock option, dividend was given on 20th of May, we will give it the full weight for the whole year. So it's going to give you the basic earning per share, 229,680 divided by 44,000. So it's going to be 5.22. This is the basic earning per share, and you're most likely to be tested on the basic earning per share. I have added a few questions which are not available in the latest version of the GLIME. I've added these questions just to make the idea clearer. How diluted earning per share is calculated when there are convertible bonds, when there are options. So please try to make some sense out of it. Even it is not examinable, but I want to make sure that you know how to calculate the diluted earning per share in different situations. So it's the same question which you've just done, but this question is no longer available in the current version. I have just used it from the older software and I've taken it from there. Same information, everything is the same. Here you have to calculate the diluted earning per share for the fiscal year ended 30th November year 2. Diluted earning per share. Here we do not have any preferred stock. We do not have any convertible bonds. What we have is the income available to common stockholder, the same number in the previous question, 229,680. And we have the same number of shares, 40,000, increased by 10% of stock dividend, 44,000, that's in the denominator. Now we have to give the impact of options in the denominator. Now, please, gentlemen, what I'm going to do will be little difficult, hard to digest, nonetheless is understandable. Now, listen, it says on 1st of June, year 2, Rinker issued options to existing shareholders. And how many shares were already in issue at June 1st? 44,000 shares. So we have issued stock options giving the immediate right to acquire one additional share for each share of stock held. Anyone who holds one share is given one option. So if you have 44,000 shares outstanding, that means you have issued 44,000 options that give you the right to purchase the stock at $6 exercise price. The option price of the additional share was $6 per share. How options are used, we will discuss in your section B, corporate finance. What options are, call, put options, so they are all coming. Option exercise price is $6 per share. Now, those who hold these options, whenever they will exercise, they will have to pay $6 for every option exercise. Means if these options, all of these are exercised, the company will receive $264,000. If all of these options are exercised, company will receive 264 because the option exercise, the person who will exercise, he will pay $6 per option to the company, not to the stock market or any investment banker, to the business, to the company, $6 per share per option. So this is the amount the firm will receive now. And against this, the firm will have to issue 44,000 shares. So write this 44,000 shares, the firm will have to issue. Now listen to me very, very, very carefully. What I'm going to do is little complex, but with little focus, you can understand the concept. When the options are exercised, the firm will receive $264,000 received, and 44,000 shares will be issued to those who have exercised the option. Fine. Company has now received $264,000. Company will use, for the computational purpose, might use this amount of money to purchase its own stock from the market at $30. Why did I take $30? Even the average price was given. Remember, in DPS calculation, we take the closing price of the stock and see how many shares could have been purchased by using this money. Company received $264,000 and the closing price of the share is 30. How many shares the firm would have purchased? 264 upon 30. The company could have purchased 8,800 shares from the market. So what you're going to do, 44,000 shares, which the firm will give to the options exercisers. Company will purchase 8,800 shares from the market using the amount received against the options exercise. And this number, whatever the number comes, will be counted from 1st of June till the end of the year, which is 30th November in this case, June whole, June, July, August, September, October, November, 6 months out of 12. So this is the computation you will do. 44,000 shares that will be issued, 8,800 shares will be purchased by the firm using the money collected. 35,200 multiplied by 6 upon 12 gives you 17,600. This will serve as the denominator of the diluted earning per share. Now you can calculate 229,680 divided by the sum of 44,000 plus 17,600, and that gives you 3.728. This is approximately D. So please do this question a couple of times. If you make sense out of it, fine. If you don't, doesn't matter, because as I said, diluted earning per share, if tested, if ever tested, will be pretty straightforward. This was a little complex question involving the exercise of options. Next question again involves diluted earning per share. Blackmar Company had 80,000 shares of common stock outstanding as of December 1st, year 1, the beginning of the company's fiscal year. The company also had 200,000 of 8% convertible bonds outstanding. Convertible bonds, convertible preferred stock, convertible bond, they will attract the calculation of diluted earning per share. And these bonds have a par of $1,000. The bonds were convertible into 20,000 shares of common stock. I mean, when the bonds will be converted, this is the number of shares that will be issued. The company's tax rate is 34%. The company's net income for the year was $107,000, and no bonds were converted during the year. The diluted earning per share of Blackmer Company for the fiscal year ended November 30th, year 2. So you know the formula, diluted earning per share is equal to IACS income available to the common stockholders or income attributable to the common stockholders upon the weighted average number of shares, right? If you have convertible bonds, this means the new shares need to be added in the denominator. That will be available if the bonds are converted. And since the bonds, whenever they are converted, the company will save upon the interest. The company will save upon the interest, so you need to add back the interest. The problem is IACS is after-tax number. You can't add just the interest amount as it is. You have to bring it into the after-tax form, interest into 1 minus tax rate. I hope you would remember from the overview class. And then you are going to solve. So what is IACS? IACS is given as a $107,000. Plug it in. What is the interest? Interest is 8% of $200,000, which is going to be 16,000. 16,000 into 1 minus tax, so as to bring it to the after-tax form. And then whatever the result comes, you need to divide it with the existing number of shares, that was 80. And the new shares that will be issued if the bonds are converted, that's going to be 20,000. So if you simplify the numerator 107,000 plus 16,000 into 0.66 will give you 10,560 divided by 100,000. So it's going to be 107 plus 10,560 divided by 100,000 is going to give you 1.1756, which is approximately 1.18. That makes A to be the correct option. Next, Dwyer Company balance sheet indicates that the company has 2 million of 7.5 convertible bonds, 1 million of 9% preferred stock, par value 100, and 1 million common stock, par value 10. The company reported net income of $317,000. The bonds can be converted into 50,000 common shares. The income tax rate is 36%, unlike the previous question that had 34% as tax rate. Which of the following would Dwyer report as diluted earning per share? We have just learned that diluted earning per share is equal to IACS. What is IACS? IACS is net income minus preferred stock dividend. I hope you remember. Net income is given as $317,000. And the preferred stock dividend can be calculated from the information given. It is 1 million 9% preferred stock. So 1 million is the book value, 9%, that means 90,000. So IACS is the net income minus preferred stock dividend 317 less 90, that gives you 227. So 227 is what you call the IACS. To this we add interest after tax. Why interest? Because we have convertible bonds paying interest at the rate of 7.5% of the par. 2 million times 7.5 gives you $150,000. So $150,000 is the interest that will be saved if these bonds are converted, multiplied by 1 minus tax rate, 1 minus 36%, upon the number of shares already outstanding for the period. I believe it is given as 1 million is the book value of common stock. Each common stock has a par of 10. 1 million by 10, that means 100,000 shares are outstanding. And when or whenever these convertible bonds are converted, 50,000 new shares will have to be issued. So this will serve as a denominator. So if I'm going to solve all of this, 227 plus 150 times 0.64, I get 323,000. Divided by 150, I should get my answer. 323 upon 150 gives you 323 upon 150, 2.15 3333. So which is approximately option B. So these were the three questions, diluted earning per share, taken from elsewhere, not from the current version of your software. So I hope these three should cover whatever you might ever be tested on diluted earning per share. So here we go. The equity section of statement of financial position is presented below. The preferred stock, common stock, additional paid in capital, also called the share premium or additional contributed capital, retained earnings, the net worth is 49 million. Net worth, also called the residual interest, total assets minus total liabilities, or simply equity. The book value per share is equal to the total common equity, mind the word common equity. Preferred stock is not common equity. Common stock, additional paid in capital, and retained earning. This is what you call the common equity. If you divide the common equity, which I believe is going to be 18 plus 10 plus 9, 37 million. 37 million is your common equity, and the number of shares, common shares, 10 million is the book value of the common stock, $5 is the par value, so 10 by 5, that means the number of shares outstanding are 2 million, 10 million upon 5. So you divide your equity, $37 million, to the number of shares outstanding, gives you a nice number, $18.5 per share. This is what you call the book value per share and matches perfectly with your option C. Next, a company has 100,000 outstanding common shares with a market value of $20 per share. This is the market price per share, MPS. I will label MPS whenever I get the market price. The dividend of $2 per share were paid in the current year. That is the dividend per share. And the company has a dividend payout ratio of 40%. Dividend payout ratio is 40%. What does it mean? If the company earns $100, 40% of that is paid as dividend. If this is the case, the price earning ratio, called the price earning multiple, or you can simply write it as the market price per share over earning per share. The problem is we have market price per share, that is $20, but we do not have EPS. We can calculate using the dividend payout ratio. What is dividend payout ratio? Dividend payout ratio is what you have been given on per share basis as dividend divided by what you earned. Please remember, dividend per share is the dividend payout ratio is the dividend per share out of earning per share. That's what you call the dividend payout ratio. So dividend per share is $2. Earning per share is to be calculated for the P multiple calculation. Dividend per share payout ratios as 0.40. Just make EPS the subject of this equation and you will get your answer. It's $5. So EPS is $5. Now, if the market price is 20, which is already given, and EPS, which we have just driven, $5, the price earning multiple is 4, which means for every $1 earning of this company's stock, the investor is willing to give $4. So apparently good one, and that's the right answer as well. Next, in calculated diluted earning per share, when the company has convertible bonds outstanding, we calculate diluted earning per share if the convertible bonds are outstanding by taking IACS, income available to common stockholders, plus interest times 1 minus tax rate upon the shares that are currently in existence, plus the new shares that will be issued, right? Now, let's see what it says. In order to calculate the diluted earning per share when a company has convertible bonds outstanding, the number of common shares outstanding must be increase or decrease to adjust the conversion feature of the bonds. So when you have to calculate diluted earning per share, number of shares outstanding must be increased in the denominator. And at the same time, the net income must be dashed by the amount of interest expense on the bonds, net of tax. This is net of tax. This is the interest expense. So your numerator must also be increased, or the interest saved on after-tax basis must be added to your net income. So your numerator must increase as well. So both will increase. So that makes D to be the correct option. Now start. The previous versions of my recording, it has got a lot of such noise. Fahad, I hope you would have noticed in part 2 videos. The Dawson Corporation projects the following for the year. We have these numbers for the year. We have been given earning before interest and tax. What exactly are we looking for? The expected common stock dividend per share for Dawson, we are looking for the dividend per share. That's to be calculated. Dividend per share. So for that, we need to find out first the income available to common stockholders, and then we'll divide it with the number of shares, and then we'll see what is the payout ratio. Let us proceed step by step. We have been given the earning before interest and tax, EBIT. From this, we need to deduct the interest expense. If we do, we get $30 million, and this $30 million, gentlemen, is called the EBT, earning before tax, right? Then from this earning before tax, we pay tax at the rate of 40% given right here. Tax at the rate of 40%, 40% of 30 is going to be 12 million. All the numbers are in millions. So what you get is $18 million. This is what you call the net income or the earning after tax. All right, then net income needs to be reduced by the preferred stock dividend, and it is given here as 4 million. So deduct the preferred stock dividend of 4 million. What you get is 14 million. This is what you call the I love this word, IACS, because this is the income available to us as the shareholders, income available to the common stockholder, 14 million. Now, this is what can be paid as dividend, but the company has a policy to pay 30% of the earning as dividend. Common stock dividend payout ratio. Whatever we earn, 30% of the earning is given to the shareholders as dividend. So you can say that the dividends to be paid is 30% of your earning, 14 million's 30%, which is 4.2 million. So 4.2 million of this earning will be paid to the shareholders. We need the dividend payment per share basis. How many shares we have? 2 million. So if you want to calculate the dividend per share, you need to divide the total dividend with the number of shares. So the total dividend is 4.2 million divided by the number of shares, that is 2 million. So you should get, I believe, 2.1. 4.2 million upon 2 million is 2.1. That is your dividend per share. Next. We have this question twice. How come? No, we have something else in the next part. Something else in the next part. It says, if Dawson Corporation common stock is expected to trade at the price earning ratio of 8, PE ratio of this stock is if 8, the market price per share would be which of these numbers? Okay, we know price earning ratio is basically the market price per share over earning per share. It's equal to 8. Do we have EPS? No. Do we have market price per share? No. Then how do we solve this question? Go back. We can calculate earning per share from this given information. We know earning per share is IACS, income available to the common stockholders, divided by the number of shares. IACS is right here, 14 million, divided by the number of shares, which is 2 million, I believe. Yes. So that will give you $7 per share. This is EPS. So just plug it in. Market price per share is to be calculated. Earning per share has just been calculated as 7. And if price earning multiple is equal to 8, make MPS as the subject of your equation. You get 7 8 is 56. C. Next. A company paid out 1/2 of the last year's earnings. A wonderful question indeed. Please focus. You have no dollar-based number here. How will you solve a question where you are given no dollar-based number? See, a company paid out 1/2 of last year's earnings and dividends. Earning increased by 20% and the amount of its dividend increased by 15%. If this is so, what is the dividend payout ratio? You basically have nothing. So I suggest whenever you are given information in percentages, assume any number you want. Any number would do. Shouldn't be in points though. Any number would do. Let's assume a company paid 1/2 of it last year's earning in dividend. Let's say last year earning is $150 million. That's just the number that came in my mind. $150 million was earning last year, and 1/2 of it was paid as dividend. That means $75 million was paid as dividends, right? That's the starting point. It says your earnings increased by 20%. If earnings increase by 20%, that means 150 will go up by 20%. After increasing 150 by 20%, what I get is 180 million. And the amount of its dividends increased by 15%. If this is what we paid as dividend last year, it has to go up by 15% this year, 75 million. Increased by 15% gives you 86.25 million. Now things are much more understandable. There are numbers. We can use these to find what the unknown is. The company's dividend payout ratio for the current year. Dividend payout ratio is what is paid as dividend, dividend in total or the dividend paid divided by the total earnings. So in other words, DPO can be calculated on per share basis, that is the dividend per share over earning per share, or the total dividend paid upon the total earnings. So either it's on per share basis or on total, it doesn't make any difference. So what is the dividend payout ratio? We don't have it on per share basis. What we do have is the total dividend paid is 86.25 million. And the total earning now is 180 million. See, we had nothing at all, but we used some assumed numbers, plugged it in, and we got our answer. I hopefully will get it right. 86.25 upon 180 gives you 47.916%, which perfectly matches with your option C. Next. The common stock of the company is currently selling at $80 per share. That is the market price per share. The leadership of the company intends to pay $4 per share dividend next year. This is the next year dividend, call it D1. D1 stands for the dividend to be paid in the end of the first this year that is going on. The expectation that the dividend will grow 5% forever. Perpetually means forever. G, the growth rate is 5%. What will be the market required return on investment for this common stock? Gentlemen, those who haven't read section B, corporate finance, please listen to me carefully. I'm just going to explain a formula which you will use extensively in your section B, corporate finance. We have this formula driven through dividend growth model or the dividend discount model. Cost of equity is equal to dividend next upon market price per share plus growth rate. Now let me explain what these legends mean here. KE is the return required by the investors, common stock investors, or this is the required rate of return or the cost of equity. D1 is the dividend to be paid in the next period, the next dividend or the expected dividend. MPS is the market price per share, and G is the growth in the dividends. This is called the dividend discount model or the Gordon growth model. You will discuss these inshallah with me in section B. And let's say if the current year dividend is given, D0 will be the symbol we use for the current year dividend. In that case, the formula is revised a bit. D1 is replaced with D0, and it will grow with the growth rate G upon the market price per share plus growth rate. So both are the same. It's just that D0 is the current dividend. D0 into 1 plus G will convert your current dividend into the next dividend. Keep these formulas in mind, take a snapshot, write them somewhere. You just need in this question, nowhere else. Okay, now we have to find the cost of equity. We have been given the inputs. The next dividend is going to be $4. Okay. The market price per share is right now $80. So basically you have $4 is the next dividend. Use D1. $80 is the current share price. The growth rate is 5%. Convert this 4 by 18 to percentages. It's going to be 5%. To this, add 5% growth rate. That means the required rate of return, the cost of equity is 10% or just simply 0.1. 10% or 0.1 is the answer. So it's just a question which basically is from your section B, but nonetheless, you've learned the formula here. Next, read the requirement first. Do not just start reading and just need to see what exactly is needed. Earning per share. We know what we need. We don't need anything from here. We just need net income. And we need the number of shares, common shares. And this is given right here. The question is it IACS? No, it's net income. Do we have preferred stock dividend? Yes. What's the number? Right here. Preferred stock 25,000 shares. Dividend paid during the year is 50, which means if you want to find IACS income available to the common stockholders, it has to be calculated by taking net income minus preferred stock dividend divided by the common stock in issue. There you go. So 250 less 50, 200, 1,000 upon 50,000, a nice rounded whole number of $4 basic earning per share, and that perfectly matches with your option A. Next, apparently a big question, a difficult question. I always recommend whenever you face a difficult draconian question, read the requirement and you will know exactly what I need to do. See, in the previous question, earning per share means I just need this number, nothing else, and from these two, and that's all. So do the same thing here. Book value per share is equal to the equity divided by the number of shares. Simple. For which company? There are two companies, A and B. If company A has 60 common shares, which will serve as the denominator, and we need to find equity. These are all income statement numbers. I need nothing from here. Cash, I don't need. Account receivable, unknown, I don't care if they are not given. Net fixed assets won't help. Do we have the equity section? Yes. Long-term debt? No. No, no. So I can simply add these two up. Common stock is a part of equity. Retained earning, equity. Other comprehensive income, equity. Any other capital revenue reserve, capital redemption reserve, revenue redemption reserve, equity. So all these are equity. So just two items are given. So the numerator will be 250 and the denominator is 60. 250 by 60, a very straightforward question. 4.166, which is 4.17 D. Next, a drop in the market price of a firm stock. Market price of the stock falls. It will call immediate increase in which of the following? Immediate, if the market price falls, which of these will increase? Let us see these one by one. Return on equity. Return on equity is the net income upon average equity. It contains no market price whatsoever. Nothing will come out of it. So this is not the right option. Dividend payout ratio, that is dividend per share upon the earning per share. There is no market price in this formula, so not affected. What about the market to book ratio? Market to book ratio is the market price per share upon the book value per share. It does involve market price per share. Market price per share is falling, which means this ratio, market to book ratio, will fall. We are expecting an increase. Absolutely, Vikas, you're right. This is incorrect as well. What about dividend yield? Dividend yield is the dividend per share upon, yes, Ms. Maham, you got it right as well, market price per share. Now look at this. If the market price per share falls, which is the denominator in this question, that means the denominator smaller will increase the ratio. So that has to be the answer, because a smaller denominator will cause the ratio to improve, or I won't say improve, increase. And that's why D is the right answer. Now, this is a fantastic question, which means a corporation computed the following items from its financial records for the year. Price earning ratio 12, payout ratio, dividend payout ratio 0.6, assets turnover 0.9. The dividend yield on common stock. We know dividend yield is the dividend per share upon the market price per share. So interesting thing is we do not have dividend per share. We do not have market per share, price per share. So what are we going to do? Use whatever is given. Things will sort themselves out by themselves. Price earning ratio is the market price per share over earning per share. It's equal to 12. Payout ratio is 0.6. What is payout ratio? The dividend payout ratio. It is equal to dividend per share upon earning per share. Right? So if you simplify this version of the equation, its market price per share is 12 times of EPS. And if you put the dividend payout ratio, which is 0.6, plug in 0.6 here. So what you have is the dividend per share is equal to 0.6 times of EPS. Fantastic. Look at this. These two will serve as the inputs in the formula here, and you get your answer. So the dividend yield is equal to dividend per share in terms of EPS is given as 0.6 times of EPS. And market price per share in terms of EPS, it is 12 times of EPS. EPS cancelled out, being the same number in numerator, denominator. What you have is now 0.6 by 12. And if you simplify, you will get the right answer. Ms. Maham has got it. 0.6 by 12, 0.05 or 5% or 0.05. The form it's given in D. So be prepared to play with the numbers, play with the formulas, play with your mind, but do not let the examiner play with you. Learn to play with him. Don't allow him to play with you. And you know what will happen if he plays with you. Next, during the most recent fiscal year, a company earned net income after tax of 3.288 million. Okay, net income. The company paid preferred share dividend of 488,000. All right. And common share dividend of 1 million. The current market price of the common share is 56. And the shares are trading at the price earning multiple of 8. Price earning multiple of 8. How many common shares does the company have outstanding? Number of shares. So what should be the starting point? If you take this P ratio starting point, the market price is given, so we can work this out. We know price earning ratio can be stated this way. Market price per share over earning per share is equal to 8. And we have been given the market price is 56, plug it in. 56 upon EPS is equal to 8. Make EPS the subject of the equation. So EPS will be equal to 56 by 8, that is 7. That's the starting point. Now we know EPS earning per share is equal to IACS divided by the number of shares. Now it's going to work. See, this is something we need to find out. EPS is there. We just need to find out IACS, income available to common stockholders. And what is that? It is net income, which is 3288000 minus preferred stock dividend, which is 488. There you go. Upon the number of shares, call it X. EPS is given as 7. Make X the subject of the equation. The numerator would simplify to 2.8 million. And the denominator would be 7. So 2.8 million upon 7 will give you a rounded number of 400,000. That perfectly matches with your option C. This is an amazing question, which means you will do it. Which of the following events will most likely result in higher price earning ratios for the company's common shares? We need a situation where we have a higher price earning ratio. Let us check each and every option and convince ourselves we have got the right option. Let us see first the option A. Dividend yield. What is dividend yield? Dividend yield is the dividend per share divided by the market price per share. Now let's read the option. The dividend yield increases when the dividend per share remains unchanged. If the dividend per share remains unchanged, and if the dividend yield is increasing, how can the dividend yield increase when the dividend per share stays the same? It can only increase if the market price per share falls. If the market price per share falls, the denominator becomes smaller. Dividend per share cannot change because it says the dividend per share remains unchanged. So when the market price per share falls, dividend yield increases, which makes this option correct. But if you bring this situation here, market price per share over earning per share, this is how we calculate the price earning multiple. So in order to make this option correct, market price per share falls, only then the dividend yield increases. If the market price per share falls, then the price earning ratio falls. We need a higher price earning ratio. So it means option A is not going to serve the purpose, because in option A, market price per share is falling, only then your dividend yield will increase. And lower market price will lower your price earning ratio, not increase. So this option is rejected. Let's say, what about option B? Let's discuss this later. Look at option C. The rate of growth in dividends is expected to decline. Dividend growth rate. We have just discussed a formula. Cost of equity is equal to dividend upon the market price per share plus growth. Just a little while ago, the dividend growth model or the Gordon growth model. In this question, if you know the elementary maths, which I suppose you do, all of you, if you make the market price as the subject of this equation, you will have dividend upon cost of equity minus G as your right-hand side. Now let's check option C. The rate of growth in dividend is expected to decline. If the rate of growth in dividend is expected to decline, if G is going to go down, that means your numerator, your denominator will become bigger, because when the G falls, you will deduct a smaller G from KE, so your overall denominator increases. If it increases, the overall market price per share will fall. If the market price per share will fall, that means your price to earning ratio will fall because of the decreasing market price. See, you have to see each and every option. If the market price falls as per this arrangement, the price earning ratio will fall because market price is the numerator in this ratio. So that means C is incorrect as well. What about D? D says economy is in recession. Economy is expected to enter a recession. When an economy enters recession, stock market collapses. Not collapses, it at least results in falling volumes. Indexes fall. So the market price of most of the shares will fall. So when the market price falls, your price earning ratio will fall also because of the decrease in market price. So this is wrong also. So A, C, and D are wrong, because all these are resulting in the lower price earning. But what about option B? Investor required rate of return on the common stock fall. We have just devised an equation that the market price per share is equal to the dividend upon the cost of equity minus growth. Right? Now, investors required rate of return on the common shares fall. If the KE falls, the overall denominator falls. When the denominator falls, the market price per share goes up. When the market price per share goes up, the price to earning ratio, which has market price as its numerator, it will increase. And that is exactly what we are looking for. Higher price earning ratio of the company. So gentlemen, this is the reason why you people get stuck in the theoretical questions. All options look the same. If you get a question like this, you will think all these options are right. Maybe this question is wrong. The question is right, you are wrong. You were unable to read between the lines. This is something you need to learn. Read between the lines. Be very minute in your reading. Be able to distinguish finely between the given options. And to do that, you need to do working like these. Write down the formulas, plug in some assumptions, and then you will get it. Next. Okay. What is needed? Look at the requirement first. A competitor wishes to make a bid to acquire the stock of the company. A competitor wants to purchase this company. What is the current market value of this company? Not on per share basis, the valuation as a whole. We need the market capitalization of this business. It says a publicly traded corporation in an industry with an average price earning ratio of 20. PE ratio for the whole industry. PE can be calculated for individual companies. PE ratios for the whole industry is also calculated, available on industrial journals. So the PE for the whole industry is 20 in this case. And this company is operating in an industry where the PE is 20. We have these financial data: sales, expenses, operating income, taxes, net income, assets, liability, equity. A competitor wishes to make a bid to acquire the stock. What is the market capitalization? So for this, we need to calculate what is the earning of the business. Earning is given straightforward as $200,000. This is the total earning. So if this is the case, total market price of this company is equal to total earning of this company is equal to 20 if this is operating in a particular industry with P multiple of 20. Total market price is what we want to find out. So that means you are going to multiply 20 with the total earnings of this company, that is $200,000. So $200,000 earning times 20 means this company will have a market valuation of $4 million. Price earning ratio of 20 means if earning of this company is multiplied by 20, you will get the market price or the whole market capitalization of the business. So that makes B to be the correct option. I hope you would remember this one. This question requires you to calculate the holding period return. A stock began the month with a stock price of $50, call it the P naught, the starting price. Paid a dividend of $2, call it D, the dividend. And the ending month price is 52, call it the P1 or PE. What is the total return did the investor earn on the stock price during this month? I hope you would remember the holding period return is equal to the ending price minus original price plus any dividend paid divided by the original price. So the ending price is 52. The starting price was 50. The dividend paid was 2. Original price was 50. Solve this up. 52 less 52, 224. 4 by 50 multiplied by 100 will give you 8% as the holding period return. You have made two types of returns from this investment. You have $2 of share price appreciation from 50 to $52, and you also earn $2 dividend. So total return is $4 based on the initial investment of 50. So the return is 8%. That makes D to be the correct option. This is a much longer question requiring you to do a lot of computation. Let's do this. For the year ended May 31st, year 2, a company had per share earning of 4.8. Okay. For year 2, the company has earning per share of 4.8. The company's outstanding stock for the year 1, year 2 consisted of 2 million of 10% preferred stock with 100 par value and 1 million shares of common stock. On June 1st, year 2, the company split stock 3 for 1. Every one larger stock was split into 3 smaller stock. This is called the stock split. And the company redeemed 1/2 of the preferred stock at par value. Half of the preferred stock was paid off. Out of this 2 million, 1 million was redeemed. Then the company's net income for the year ended May 31st, year 3 was 10% higher than in year 2. In year 3, the income was 10% higher than the previous month, than the previous year. Earning per share in year 3 of the company's common stock were. This is a complex question requiring you to do a lot of computation because you basically have nothing. You want to calculate earning per share for year 3 and you do not have the IACS for 3. You do not have the number of shares for year 3. So basically you have nothing. You have to find everything from scratch and practice will make you perfect. So what we should do, what we have is the EPS for the last year. We have the preferred stock for the last year. We have the number of common stock for the last year. This can at least help us to find out what was the income last year. So let us start. EPS is calculated by dividing your IACS with the number of shares which was given as 1 million in the last year into 4.8. So if you calculate IACS using this formula, it's going to be 4.8 to 1 million. That's going to be 4.8 million. All right. Now, then how do we calculate net income? We know IACS is equal to net income minus preferred stock dividend, 4.8 million. Lots of maths is involved. We don't know net income, but we know preferred stock dividend, which can be calculated as 10% of 2 million in the last year. So 10% 2 million is going to be $200,000. So net income minus preferred stock dividend of $200,000 is equal to 4.8 million. This will give you the net income for the last year. Net income is 4.8 million plus 2.2 million. So it's going to be 5 million. So your net income is 5 million in year 2. That's the starting point. It says your net income for year 3 was 10% higher than year 2. So for year 3, your net income is 10% higher than the last year. 5 million was the earning last year net income. It's going to go up by 10%, which means $5.5 million is your net income in the current period. Right now, this is interesting. I have to calculate EPS. For that, I first need to find out what is the income available to common stockholders. Remember, income available to common stockholder in year 3 is the net income, which is 5.5 million. From this, I need to deduct the preferred stock dividend, which will be different now because it says 1/2 of the preferred stock was redeemed, which means out of this $2 million, $1 million preferred stock was redeemed. Remaining $1 million requires dividend at the rate of 10%. So your dividend will fall to half. It was $200,000 last year. Now it will be just $100,000, which means 0.1 million only. So 0.1 million out of 5.5 million will give you the ISES, which is going to be 5.4 million. Right now, the next step is to calculate EPS, earning per share, which is equal to ISES 5.4 million divided by the number of shares. And number of shares again have a twist here. It says the common stock split was 3-for-1, which means every one stock was divided for 3. If originally there were 1 million shares, they have each been divided into 3 equal parts. So now we have 3 million shares outstanding. So dividing 5.4 million ISES with 3 million shares, you should get 1.8 million, $1.8 per share. So that makes C to be the correct option. Now, next question, number 19, information concerning common stock as of November 30th, the end of the company's current year, is presented below. Number of shares, par value of shares, dividend per share, market price per share, basic earning per share, diluted earning per share. What do we need? Price earning ratio. Price earning ratio is the market price per share over earning per share. Yes, it is, Miss Maham. You are absolutely right. It's a messy question. It's just for the sake. I find these questions as an entertainment, as a question for your mental exercise. So take them as such, just for your mental calisthenics, mental exercise. You need to be mentally strong when you get to the exam. So these questions are just for your exercising, to making yourself stronger on different topics. So just face them, do these questions. Do not run away from them. They will make you stronger for the exam. So guys, I hope you remember. I hope you must remember. You should always remember. Price earning multiple in the stock markets, an analyst will divide the market price per share with the diluted earning per share. So as an analyst, stock market analyst, you will divide your market price per share with the diluted earning per share if you are in the stock market. If you are doing CMA, Vikas, absolutely right, excellent. For CMA guys, you will divide the market price per share divided by the basic earning per share. So 54 by 18 is 3. That's explicitly what I told you during our class, that the analyst in the stock market, they prefer diluted earning per share. It is more relevant, market price per share over diluted earning per share. But your CMA exam manager has explicitly, clearly asked you to use the basic earning per share. I can show you the evidence if you want me to. So you should always use the basic earning per share to calculate your P multiple, and that's 3, and that makes A to be the correct option. Next question. T Corporation is considering the acquisition of S company with common stock. The following financial information is available regarding the two companies. T, net income for S, common shares for both, earning per share for both, and price earning multiples or the price earning ratios for both from 12 and 8 respectively. T plans to offer S shareholder a 20% premium over the market price of S stock for acquisition. What would be the earnings per share for the surviving company immediately following the merger? First of all, let us establish what is the price T will have to pay for each share of S. If you just look at this, we have been given the price earning multiple and earning per share. So simply multiply the price earning multiple of with earning 1.25. It means the current share price of S is $10. Since T is going to pay 20% more than the current market price, which means the price offered is going to be $12. That is the price with premium. How many shares are outstanding for S? 1.6 million. So if the $12 is the share offered price and there are 1.6 million shares outstanding, that means 1.6 million multiplied by 12, T must offer $19.2 million either in cash or bonds or in the form of common stock. Since the information is not given clearly here, so it means T will have to offer its own shares for this much value. Let us first determine what is the current share price of T. We'll do the same thing. Whenever we multiply the price earning multiple with the earning per share, this gives us the current market price, because the formula I'm sure you know, price earning multiple is 12. If you want to determine the market price, multiply the earning with the P multiple. E earning per share multiplied by 12, 12 times 2, that's going to be $24. That is the current share price of T. If $19.2 million worth of shares are to be given, with the market price of each share being 24, it means how many shares will be offered? 19.2 million divided by 24. That means T will have to offer 800,000 shares of its own. 800,000 shares. Now, already T has 4 million shares outstanding, and if 800 shares are offered as a consideration for acquiring S, it means the total shares outstanding will then be 4 million and 0.8. It's going to be 4.8 million shares of T now will be outstanding when S is acquired. We have to calculate the earning per share of the surviving company because S is gone immediately following the merger. So EPS is going to be, now the number of shares are 4.8 million, 4 million already in issue, 800,000 issued to purchase S. So these are the number of shares. The combined net income is 8 plus 2 million is going to be 10 million. If you divide 10 million with the 4.8 million, you get 2.0833, which perfectly matches with your option B. Next. Selected information regarding a corporation's outstanding equity is shown below. What is the corporation's dividend yield? We know dividend yield is the dividend per share over the market price per share. Okay. What have we been given? We have been given the common stocks book value 3.5 million, preferred stock dividend paid, common stock dividend paid, and the earning per share and the market price per share. So market price per share is given as 18. We will have to calculate the dividend per share. That's the dividend yield. So this is the dividend paid. How many shares were outstanding? 3.5 million is the book value of common stock. And this is the number of shares. 350,000 shares are outstanding. So that means 700,000 dividend has been paid on 350,000 shares. That means the dividend per share is $2. So dividend per share is $2. Market price per share is $18. So 2 by 18 times 100 will give you 11.11%, and that perfectly matches with your option D. A corporation expects net income of $800,000 for the next fiscal year. Its targeted and current capital structure is 40% debt and 60% equity. So, if this is the case, the director of the capital budgeting has determined that the optimal capital spending for the next year is 1.2 million. Our capital expenditure is funded 40% by debt and 60% by equity, right? So if the corporation follows a strict residual dividend policy and we have to invest 1.2 million in a capital expenditure project, as per the company's preferred capital structure, 40% of this funding, 40% of 1.2 million should come from debt. So 40% of 1.2 million will be $480,000. And 60% of 1.2 million is that $720,000. This should come from equity. So if the company follows a strict residual dividend policy means company will invest in all the profitable projects, and after investing in the capital projects, whatever remains will be distributed as dividends to the shareholder. So if the current year net income is expected to be $800,000, and as per the targeted capital structure, we are expected to invest 1.2 million, 480 would come from debt and 720 should come from equity, which means out of the earnings available, 720 would be channeled into the capital expenditure, and the remaining 80,000 will now be the residual profit, which can be paid as dividend. That's what you call the residual dividend policy. what is the expected dividend payout ratio for the next year? Dividend payout ratio is the dividend that you are paying out of the earnings that was available. So 80,000 upon $800,000 will give you 10%. And that makes D to be the correct option. If the capital gains were taxed at a lower rate than the regular dividend income, let's say the capital gain tax is 10% and the tax on dividend is, let's say, 18%. And what is capital gains tax? Let's say you purchase a stock for $100 and you sell it at $150. The gain that you have made over the sale is $50. This is the capital gains to be taxed at 10%. That's the capital gains tax. So let's say if the capital gain tax is lower, 10% than the regular dividend interest, 18%, then the list A, the dividend payout percentage of the company, the list B, everything else being same, what is the list A and B? List A has either higher, lower, and list B has different combination options. Now let's just assume first, take the list A first and take the dividend payout ratio. If the dividend payout ratio is higher, that means the shareholders will have to pay more tax. Resultantly, the share price will fall and the cost of equity would be higher as well. Now let's do the opposite. As we know, the capital gains tax is lower. So if we keep the dividend payout percentage lower, we pay less dividends to our shareholders. So they are taxed at for a little amount of dividend, or we pay no dividend at all, so that the shareholders can avoid paying high level of tax. So this would benefit the shareholders. So the share price will go up and the cost of equity will go down. This perfectly matches with your option B. It will, if the dividend payout ratio is lower, it will lower its cost of equity and it will increase the share price also. B is the right option. The common stock of a company has a market price of $36. Okay. The company has 50 million common shares outstanding and net income of 200 million. At the end of the fiscal year, the company declared common dividend of $1 per share. What is the price earning ratio? We know price earning multiple is simply the market price per share over earning per share. So what we can do, we can simply take the market price given as $36 and we just need to find out EPS. EPS isn't there. We can find EPS. EPS is equal to income available to common stockholders, which is quite a sizable number, $200 million, divided by the number of shares, which are 50 million. So it's a fairly straightforward question. Income available to common stockholders divided by number of shares, that's 4. EPS is 4. So price earning multiple is 36 by 4. So that makes 9C to be the correct option. The common stock of a beverage company has a current market price of 34 MPS. The beverage company is estimated to earn $2 per share in the next year. This is the EPS. EPS expected next year is $2. The average price earning multiple ratio of the companies in this industry is 15. Price earning multiple for the whole industry is 15. Using the price earning ratio as a comparable valuation method, the beverage company stock is either undervalued or overvalued. Let us see. The P multiple is 15 for this industry, and if EPS is $2, that means the share price should be, as per the model, should be $30. But as you can see, right now the current share price is $34. So this is $4 overvalued if we use the price earning as a comparable valuation method. So as per the model, $30 should be the share price if the current price is 34. So we can say that the share is overvalued by $4. A is the right option. A corporation has annual earnings per share of $12 if it has a dividend payout ratio of 40% and an annual dividend yield of 4%. The stock price per share must be. Okay, first thing we have been given is the dividend payout percentage is 40%. And how do we calculate this? It is equal to dividend per share divided by the earning per share, 40% or 0.4. And in other words, we can say that the dividend payout ratio is dividend per share upon EPS or DPS is equal to 0.4 times of earning per share, which I think is already given. EPS is given as $12. So just multiply 0.4 with 12. 12 is EPS. So that will give you dividend per share as $4.8. All right. The next step is to calculate your dividend yield. What is dividend yield? Dividend yield is the dividend per share upon the market price per share. Dividend per share is 4.8 and the market price per share is something that we have to calculate. And we have been given the dividend yield as 4%. See, this is given already. So you just need to make market price per share as the subject of this arrangement. So it's going to be simply MPS is equal to $4.8 divided by 4%. So it means the market price should be $120, and that makes C to be the correct option. Selected year-end information from the balance sheet of a publicly traded company as of December 31st, year 1 is given below. Common stock $1 million, additional paid-in capital is $2 million, retained earnings $500,000. Year 2 is nearly over and it is expected that the net income will be $200,000. The dividend payout ratio will be 30%. So it means out of the earnings, 30% would be paid out as dividend, and there will be no shares issued or redeemed during the year. If the comparable firms are trading at a market to book ratio of 2 times market to book ratio, that is the market price per share over the book value per share, if it is 2 for the industry, what is the expected market price per share at the end of year 2? Okay, so we have the book market price to book ratio as $2. Okay. Do we have book value per share? No. We need to calculate. Book value per share for year 2 specifically is the equity, which is 1 million for common stock, 2 million for additional contributed capital or additional paid-in capital, or called the share premium in our part of the world, plus 500,000 of retained earnings. Do not forget we have earned $200,000 net income for the current year, year 2, and 30% of it will be paid as a dividend, which means the remaining amount would be 70% of 200,000. This is important. Net income, 30% will be paid out as dividend, 70% would remain as retained profit for the period as an addition to the existing retained earnings. So it's going to be $140,000. So this is the numerator. This is the equity at the end of year 2. Everything is here, but just you added 70% of your current year's earning as an addition to your equity. And how many shares do we have? 1 million is the book value of your common stock and each share is $1. That means you have 1 million shares outstanding. If you simplify the numerator, it will give you 3.64 million. And in the denominator, you have 1 million shares outstanding. So that will give you 3.64. This is your book value per share. Now, since we have to find the market price, so you will now input this book value per share in this formula. So book market price per share is going to be 2 times the book value per share, which we have calculated to be 3.64. Multiply 2 with 3.64, you get 7.28, which perfectly matches with your option C. Next, UTE company had the following capital structure during year 1 and year 2. Preferred stock $10 par 4% cumulative. Now this is important. Stock that is cumulative, even if the directors do not declare the dividend, it needs to be deducted from your net income in order to calculate your basic earning per share or the diluted earning per share. Okay, and then we have common stock, preferred stock 25,000 shares, issued and outstanding 250, par value is 10. Common stock, par $5, 200,000 shares outstanding, 5 times 200,000, 1 million. The preferred stock is not convertible. So that means no diluted earning per share. UTE reported net income of $500,000 for the year ended December 31st, year 2. UTE paid no preferred dividends during the year 1 and paid $16,000 in preferred dividend during year 2. In its December 31st, year 2 income statement, what amount should UTE report as basic earning per share? We know basic earning per share is equal to income available to common stockholders divided by the weighted average number of shares. We don't need any weightings because the number of shares is already given and there is no stock transaction. Now the point is, most of you would take 500,000 as your IACS, which would be wrong. You need to deduct the preferred stock dividend because it is cumulative. When the preferred stock is cumulative, for basic earning per share calculation and for diluted even, you have to deduct the dividends, even it is not declared, not paid even. So irrespective of what has been paid, you have to deduct 4% of 250, and that's going to be 10,000. So you will write 500,000 as your net income, less 10,000 for the preferred stock dividend on these cumulative stock, even not declared, even not paid, whatever paid, we are not concerned, divided by 200,000 number of shares. So if you do the simplification, it will give you 490 upon 200,000, 2.45, and that makes A to be the correct option. Next, 29. The following is the equity section of Harbor Company's balance sheet. Common stock $10 par, 100,000 shares authorized, 50,000 shares issued, and out of these issued shares, 5,000 have been reacquired and are held in treasury, which means that out of these 50,000 shares, 5,000 are treasury. That means 45,000 shares are outstanding, and these are the shares we use to calculate the dividends to be paid or the earning per share calculation or diluted earning per share. Remember, outstanding shares are equal to the shares issued minus shares in treasury, because those shares that are held in treasury, they are not entitled to receive any dividends. Hence, they are excluded from calculation of your basic earning per share. What else have we got? Additional paid in capital, retained earnings, and this is the subtotal. The treasury stock deducted at cost. The net equity is 2.2 million. We have to calculate, it says Harbor has insignificant amounts of convertible securities, stock warrants and stock options. What is the book value per share of Harbor common stock? So we don't have to calculate diluted earning per share or the basic earning, just the book value per share, which is equal to your equity, 2.2 million. And please note, there are 50,000 shares outstanding, but 5,000 are in treasury. So you will write the net figure, 45,000, which are outstanding. So 2.2 million upon 45,000 will give you the book value per share, 48.8888, and so on till infinity. So if you just round it off, it will nicely match up with your option A. Book Corporation's equity balances, which include no accumulated other comprehensive income, were as follows at December 31st. 6% non-cumulative preferred stock, $100 par, liquidation value 105 per share. Now this is important. It means when the preferred stocks are redeemed or paid off, you have to pay $105 per share. So you are paying back more than the par of the preferred stock. Common stock 10 par, 300,000, and retained earning 95. At December 31st, Bo's book value per common share, or simply what you just calculated, equity in this case will be this 300,000. Common equity, remember, book value per share is for common equity, and of course the question exactly says so. Plus 95,000 of retained earning. This is the total common equity, right? Now remember, when these preferred stock will be redeemed or liquidated, you have to pay $5 extra for each preferred stock. How many stocks are outstanding? Preferred stock, 100 par, 100,000 total value. That means total 1,000 preferred stock are outstanding or are issued, right? You have to pay $5 as a premium on redemption on each share, which means this extra amount needs to be reduced from your equity. Remember, any amount over and above the par payable on preferred stock needs to be removed from equity in order to calculate your book value per common share. And how many common shares do we have? There are $300,000 figure on your balance sheet of common stock. Each share has 10 par. That means you have total of 30,000 shares. So in the numerator now we have the equity, common equity adjusted for the excess to par payable to preferred stockholders divided by the number of shares. So if you simplify, it will give you $13 per share, and that matches with your option C. A corporation had 250,000 shares of common stock outstanding on January 1st. The financial manager of the corporation on September 30th is projecting net income of $750,000 for the current year. If the management of the corporation is planning on declaring a $55,000 preferred stock dividend and a 2-for-1 common stock split. Every one common stock right now will be divided into 2 equal parts on December 31st. Earnings per common share on December 31st is expected to equal. Earning per share is equal to income available to common stockholders. That is equal to your net income of 750,000 less the preferred stock dividend divided by the number of common stock at the balance sheet date. Since there is going to be 2-for-1 stock split, that would mean if you already had 250,000 shares of common stock at the balance sheet date, there will be 500,000. So if you simplify, it's going to be 695,000 upon 500,000, 1.39. Perfectly matches with your option D. Our company's financial data for the recent fiscal year is as follows. Common stock, 5 million shares outstanding. Preferred stock, 1 million shares. Net income, 50 million. And common stock dividend, that is 8 million. And preferred stock dividend, that is $2 million. The company would have reported basic and diluted earning per share as follows. Basic earning per share is equal to net income, which is given as 50 million, and from this deduct the preferred stock dividend, that is 2 million, divided by the shares outstanding, common stock, that is 5 million. So if you simplify, it's going to be 48 million upon 5 million, $9.6. So basic earning per share is 9.6. And we do not have any information in this question that shows any security that is dilutive. We don't have any convertible preferred stock. We do not have any convertible bonds. Don't have any warrants and options. So your basic earning per share and your diluted earning per share, both are the same. That makes A to be the correct option. Bull and Bear Investment Banking is working with the management of Clark Incorporated in order to take the companies public in an initial public offering. Selected financial information for Clark is as follows. Long-term debt, common equities par, book value, additional paid in capital, retained earnings. Then we have total assets, net income, and the dividend annual. If public companies in Clark's industry are trading at 12 times earning, means the overall price earning ratio for the whole industry is 12, then what is the estimated value per share of Clark? Okay, now what you should do, calculate the earning per share first. And you can take your net income, because there is no preferred stock here. Take your net income as 3.75 million and divide it with the number of shares outstanding. How many shares do we have? 3 million shares. So that will give you the earning per share. So it's going to be 1.250 or 1.25. So this industry, Clark's industry, is trading at 12 times the earnings. If the earning is 1.25, then you simply multiply 1.25 with 12. This will give you the estimated value per share of Clark. So it will be, I think, about 1.25, 15. D is the right option. Same question, but we need something else now. If the public companies Clark's industry are trading at market to book ratio of 1.5, what is the estimated value per share of Clark? Market price per share over book value per share is 1.5. That's for the whole industry. So let us first calculate the book value per share for this particular company, Clark. Take the equity, common stock, additional paid in capital, retained earning, and simply divide it with the number of shares, that is 3 million. If you do 33 million upon 3, 11. Book value per share is 11. Simply replace 11 in the new denominator. You'll get MPS is equal to 1.5 times 11. So it will be 16.5. B. A corporation paid dividend of $3 per share last year. If the investors expected the dividend per share to grow by 5%, that's the growth rate. What required return of investor is consistent with the current share price of 63. So what we have been given, the current share dividend is $3, growth rate is given as 5, the current share price MPS is 63. Now we need to calculate the cost of equity. Remember, the cost of equity is equal to next dividend as per the dividend discount model upon the market share price plus the growth rate. So this D0 is the current dividend, which must grow by 5%, which means in the numerator we'll write 3 into 1.05. That will give you the dividend after one period, or the next dividend, divided by the current market price 63 plus 5%. That's what the growth rate. That is the dividend discount model. So if you simplify this part, it will give you 0.05, which will multiply with 100 will give you 5%. 5% will give you total of 10%. So that makes C to be the correct option. What return on equity do investors seem to expect for a firm with a $50 share price, an expected dividend of 5.5, a beta of 0.9, and a constant growth of 4.5%? Okay, now the equity investors' cost of capital, the cost of equity, it is equal to the current dividend, that is D0 into 1 plus G upon the current share price plus growth rate. Since we have not been given the current dividend, we have been given the expected dividend, which basically is the simplification of this. So we have been given the next dividend as 5.5. Market price per share is given as 50. And the growth rate is 4.5. If you simplify, it's going to be 15.5%. Convert this into percentage and add 4.5% to it. You'll get 15.5. That is C. 10 years ago, perpetual preferred shares with a par value of $50 and an annual dividend rate of 6% were issued. Remember, perpetual preferred stock means it is not redeemable. This is the par. This is the rate at which the dividend will be paid. 50 times 6%, that's $3. So that is the annual dividend. Currently, there are no dividends in arrears. Since the issue date, interest rates have risen and the shares are now selling at 38. Whenever the interest rate goes up, the common stock and the preferred stock prices fall. The reason is the money flows towards the bonds and fixed income, and that's why the market price of common and preferred stock falls. So it falls from 50 to 38. The market's current required rate of return on these shares is going to be the cost of preferred stock, or the required rate of return on these preferred stock is dividend upon the current market price. Dividend is $3. Market price right now is 38. So it's going to be 3 by 38 times 100. It will give you 7.894%. So despite having 6% rate coupon, the rate on the par, required return goes up because of the reason the interest rates have increased and the price of the stock has fallen. So the required rate of return on these shares is going to be 7.89. That makes D to be the correct option.